So welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And first of all, let us start by thanking the team from Seoul DXB. We feel just really honored that they would even include us in the program, and they've been very just gracious and generous by doing so. So thank you to them. To the faces we know and to the faces that we don't know yet, we appreciate your presence so very much, and it's just very heartwarming for us to see that what we love and our passion, meaning plants and how to use them in our rituals, is something that resonates with all of you. And yeah, just thank you for being here.
So before we start, before we introduce ourselves, I want to ask you something, which is, did you know that every 2 weeks an elder passes away, and with them an ancient language dies with them too? So that's 25 languages a year. Along with these languages, we lose not just words, but the stories, wisdom, and traditions tied to them. Now imagine this. What if the same is happening to our plants and the knowledge of how to use them? Across our region, countless medicinal plants are disappearing through war, colonization, and globalization, and with them, the centuries-old traditions that have been passed down through generations. Today, we're here to talk about why reclaiming our traditions around medicinal plants is not just about preserving our heritage, it's about protecting the deep connection to our lands, our ancestors, and the wisdom and the healing wisdom that they entrusted to us. Let's explore how we can honor and revive this knowledge that sustains both our people and our environment.
And that's really what was the starting point for us in creating Hikma rituals. And so I'll start by telling you a little bit more about Hikma Rituals, our brand, and what it stands for and what we do, Shereen and I. So Hikma Rituals is really about reclaiming ancestral wisdom, preserving cultural heritage, and connecting with the land. So what we do, we create product and practices that honor the plant traditions of our region. And we use plants not just for healing the body, but also for fostering creativity, connection, and resilience. So what was really at the initiation point of us starting Hikma, what really triggered us wanting to start Hikma and create this brand, was on one end wanting to support people to feel better, so help them and guide them in finding a way back to feeling balanced out of chronic health issues through the application of plants. And Shereen and I are both certified herbalists. We'll tell you a bit more about that and what that means in a little bit. But the other part was really a desire for us to connect back to our roots. And we did so through the plants and through reconnecting with the traditions, rituals, and knowledge around these plants that are native to parts of the world where we find our own roots. So maybe I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Mahdiah, co-founder of Hikma Ritual. I'm a certified herbalist and sustainability professional. My roots are grounded in the traditions of North Africa as well as Canada. So I grew up in Canada, really immersed in nature, spending time with family, hunting, foraging, and really learning about the balance between humans and the land. My journey as a herbalist, I would say, is really closely tied to my background in environmental sciences, but also my Indigenous ancestry, as well as my upbringing in Islamic Sufi tradition, all of which really inspire me to honor the earth's wisdom in all that I do.
And I'm Shereen. Hi, everyone. Also clinically trained herbalist. I have a deep passion for preservation of knowledge around plants of our region. I really want to learn. I'm still learning so much about them. My journey only began probably 5 or 6 years ago. But first, I think the thing that really drove me to study herbs was, again, a longing for connection to my homeland. So I'm Iraqi. My dad's from Kurdistan. My mom's from Baghdad. I was born in London. And as much as London's home, I felt always this like a slight disconnect from, first of all, nature, from growing up in an urban environment, but also a longing for homeland, I guess. Maybe a lot of people here relate. We're all in Dubai and we're not on the lands that, our ancestors are from. So that's really why I got into it. And I found myself through little like moments of I would say, grace, or like, moments where I'd like, okay, this makes sense. This is why I'm doing this, because it gives me that connection and just the knowledge to be deeper in relationship with where I'm from. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I studied herbal medicine. Apart from also wanting to be in service and help people heal from like chronic illness or emotional states that they need help getting back to balance with. That's also a really fulfilling part of what we do.
And so you may ask yourself, why would there be a talk about plants at Soul Dubai? And I think simply put, it's because plants shape culture. And this fact is maybe more easily evident when we think about how we can easily associate different foods with specific cultural backgrounds. And obviously, when we talk about foods, then a big part of our foods is plants. So put another way, all cultures are deeply influenced by the plants and the ecology of the environment, and that really does shape our cultural expression at the end of the day. However, a question that Shereen and I ask ourselves often is, how can we remain grounded in authenticity when the wellness industry, as well as the cultural industry, often erases cultural roots of the traditions that it profits from? So at the heart of Hikma is the intention to reclaim these traditions and honor the plants and the rituals that have shaped our communities for generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Which leads me to say that nature has always had like such a profound source of inspiration for human creativity. From the poetry of ancient civilizations to modern art and music, it's the rhythm of the natural world to the colors, the shapes, the seasons, the cycles that spark our imagination and connects us to something deeper. Plants, in particular, hold a unique role in this creative process. Their essence, whether in the form of aromas, teas, or even the act of harvesting or gardening them, or even just looking at them, really, can quiet the noise of the modern world and bring us back to present. This connection to the earth helps unlock the flow of creative energy that so often is blocked in our daily lives through just our modern lives, tech, everything, urban environments. So plant rituals like preparing an infusion, which is like a tea, or burning frankincense, which we're doing right here, or simply sitting with a rose in bloom, become acts of mindfulness. They ground us, they open the door to reflection, intuition, and creative flow. And, for me personally, it creates a feeling of peace and clarity where then you can have, more of an open channel to receive or to create.
And I think
Mahdiah.
building on that.
Yeah. Over to you, Mahdiah. Sorry.
I think building on that, if we just look at the landscapes of our regions, so we have vast deserts and rugged mountains and coastal areas. So all of these have really inspired artistic and creative expression over the years, whether it's in poetry, literature, as well as architecture. And I always think of, for example, traditional Amazigh, Arab, or Islamic geometric patterns that so clearly draw inspiration from the symmetry and the forms that are found in nature, which really reflects a deep cultural connection to the environment. We can also think of how in the Quran, for example, there are about 20 plants that are mentioned, and there are other important cultural and spiritual texts that highlight the significance of nature as a source of reflection and wisdom. And that wisdom actually is, what hikmah means, and was, what inspired us to name our brand Hikma. So hikmah in Arabic means wisdom, and it refers to the divine wisdom that is embedded within the natural world. And then, obviously you can think of the Andalusian courtyards and gardens, and even the Persian designs on Persian carpets and rugs that, really reflect the entire region's long-standing appreciation for greenery, green spaces, and that really did foster inspiration in the region.
So there's a few plants that are really interesting that Mahdiah is going to skim over. Well, we can start with the cedar tree, which is here.
Yeah, cedar tree is a very important native plant of the region. And it has cultural and spiritual significance culturally here in the UAE and in the wider region. A little bit similar to henna. Henna, a lot of people are familiar with. derived from the Lawsonia inermis plant. So that's a plant that is central to so many rituals that we go through life. So whether it's
Weddings.
wedding ceremonies, birth, and I'm sure you've all seen or attended weddings where the bride has beautiful henna patterns on her hands. I believe in Sudan, the groom and the groomsmen also have beautiful henna patterns on their hands. In many North African cultures, you'll have plants like thyme, myrrh, frankincense that are essential to spiritual practices and used for cleansing spaces. And here I can think of like the Gnawi tradition, for example, where during the Lela, which is the ceremony that goes on throughout the entire night, frankincense and myrrh is burned and is there to cleanse the space and just add that very beautiful scent during the ceremonies.
And henna as well. Does anyone know the medicinal uses of henna, or why the practical use as well, apart from being like beautiful and decorative? Does anyone know why it's the other properties that it has in the region, which I find super interesting? It's cooling. So in our hot climates, henna is a cooling plant, so it's said to cool the skin, and that's why they put it on. It's also antimicrobial, so to protect the skin from infection. So all of these plants, apart from the cultural use or the use for their beauty, there's also practical uses and reasons why they're there or why they're applied.
Yeah, and that's really what we mean when we talk about wisdom, right? Is the fact that these plants have been incorporated into rituals and practices for generations. And often it's multidimensional why that is. There's obviously a spiritual aspect to it, but there's also very often, a medicinal aspect to it and reason why.
So this sets the scene nicely to talk about how for millennia, plants have been at the heart of our cultures, carrying with them the wisdom of our ancestors and the stories of our lands. Yet, many of these traditions, particularly those rooted in regions like ours, have been overshadowed or erased by the forces of colonialism, globalization, and the homogenization of wellness practices.
Yeah, and this is something that we, I think, make a point to talk about and to spread awareness on. And while urbanization and globalization have contributed, colonialism played a profound role in the erasure of cultural heritage and knowledge. And, as we all know, colonialism disrupted traditional ways of life, which often led to suppression or loss of knowledge about the cultural and medicinal uses of plants. And this erasure stripped many communities of crucial connection to their heritage and created a gap in that cultural continuity.
One example of this, which I've spoken about a few times, is two incidents that happened in Iraq. So this affected me deeply, obviously, because that's where I'm from. Is 2003 was the bombing of the Iraq National Seed Bank in Abu Ghraib. And that was the bombing of thousands of heirloom native plant varieties of Iraq. So that was lost in one hit by the American invasion. That, I don't know, it just hit. When I heard that news many years ago, it really affected me deeply, because I was like, it's not only a war on, the people and infrastructure. It's a war on the deep, history and culture and land and seeds and food and sovereignty. So that was one story that really got me looking into this, and I went into a really deep dive on it. And then the other one was Paul Bremer, who was in charge of taking over Iraq in 2003, put this very controversial order called Order 81 in. And what that did was it made it illegal, and it's still in place today, 24, how many years are we now? Since 2003, 25 years later. My math is crap, so. But it's still, the point is, it's still on today, where no Iraqi farmer is allowed to save their seeds. So if you're not familiar with agricultural practices, that completely strips away the farmer's sovereignty, their food security, their access to heirloom plants. So plants that are thousands. We're talking about Mesopotamia, plants that are thousands of years old, So, and what does that do to the farmer? It makes them have to buy new seeds every year from companies like Monsanto, which are huge, big agro companies that mostly use genetically modified seed. I'm not going to go into Monsanto and the hideous nature of that company, but just to skim over quickly is that, they force farmers to buy their seed, so they cannot save their own seed. They make them use pesticides that are dangerous and that harm the ecology of all the land around them. And farmers have to buy those pesticides and fertilizers directly from Monsanto. So they're already in debt. Just, they can't afford to grow it's illegal for them to plant a tomato, take the seed from that tomato and replant it. I don't know how this is enforced today, but the law is still there. So this is the way that they do. War. They literally, attack our lands. So we have a responsibility to, save seeds, plant our plants, learn about them, and preserve that knowledge. So that's just one way on how colonization and war has affected.
Yeah, and you can find examples like that throughout history, and I mean, you can find examples of that in our region, like in Iraq, which Shereen just highlighted, but obviously you find these same dynamics on the African continent, in India and Southern America as well. And what it does beyond everything Shereen highlighted is that it disrupts the social and it disrupts the social tissue, and it has great impact on the economy as well. And even for example in North Africa, when the French colonial rule was in place, there's a striking example around rosemary. Rosemary was traditionally used by local healers, which were mainly women, to treat ailments such as headaches, digestive issues, respiratory issues. And it was a whole economy in place around that, and not just around rosemary, but around other medicinal plants. And the French came, and then they commodified rosemary and started redirecting growers to grow it at much larger scale and also export it to France, mainly to be used in pharmaceuticals and perfumes. So that really undermined traditional healers, who were often stigmatized and replaced by European medical systems, which were deemed superior.
Yeah, so it applies on there's so many stories of the erasure of plants, or the commodification of them, that directly impacts the lands that they're from and the people that grow them. So a lot of people ask me, what are active forms of resistance against erasure from a plant perspective? Well, reclamation starts with awareness of the plants that grow in our region. Specifically now, I mean, people say that Dubai has no nature, which I strongly argue, because it does. But to learn about the lands that we are on, that's the best way to start a relationship. And then the traditional ways that they've been used and the stories that they carry. Plants have so much folklore and stories around them that I find fascinating, like mythical stories, things passed down from our grandmothers. Document them, learn them, and keep telling them. And then it continues with action. So action is choosing to integrate these plants into our lives, sharing their significance with the future generations, and protecting the ecosystems that nurture them. So examples of this could be starting a garden, or just growing one plant if a garden's too overwhelming, drinking its tea, making its medicine, cooking with it, just being in relationship with the plants. And that's really, it's quite simple. That's where we start, and then you can deepen into study and awareness even more.
And reclaiming these plant traditions not only preserve cultural identity, but it also supports environmental sustainability. And these practices are often deeply tied with the natural rhythm and resources of the region. So protecting native plants also helps mitigate the impacts of desertification, water scarcity, which are all very crucial issues that are linked to the stability of our regions. And that's also why native plants play a vital role when it comes to preserving our biodiversity, and play a very crucial role when it comes to climate adaptation and resilience. Some examples of that is halophytes. So halophytes are plants that grow in saline soils, so soils that have a very high content of salt. And an example of a halophyte is Salicornia, for example, which increasingly is being explored for its ability to sequester carbon, improve soil quality, and provide food and medicinal resources. So there's a research center here based in Dubai that does excellent work around that. And really what we're talking about here is nature-based solutions to climate change. So integrating traditional knowledge, into modern climate strategies really enables nature-based solutions. So that could be ecosystem restoration, water resource management, and then carbon sequestration. And there was actually just last week in Riyadh, COP16, which was dedicated to that topic.
There's also, phytoremediation, which is, again, another result of war, sadly, is the depleted uranium in the soil. White phosphorus, as we know, has been illegally used a lot these days in Gaza and Lebanon. And there's an amazing body of research going on and people that are applying this knowledge, which is called phytoremediation, so using plants to heal the soil. So plants that grow native here, like milk thistle, they actually detoxify not only our livers, but also the soil. Sunflower also, removes any toxins out of the soil. It's not as simple, because then you have to dispose of the plant, then the toxins are in the plant, so you've got to learn how to compost them in the way where they don't go back into the soil, so it's a process. But it's amazing because you can use fungi and plants to remediate soil after war, damage from war and chemical warfare.
And what about from a social aspect? What would you say the impact of why is biodiversity important?
Biodiversity is important because of health. There's a few reasons I've listed here, but one of them is health. So most of our medicines have been derived from plants. So if you destroy biodiversity, you're then also closing the door to future discoveries in medicine. Food security and sovereignty. So diverse crops and ecosystems ensure a stable food supply. They protect against pests and diseases, and they support nutrition for communities. Livelihood. Biodiversity is important because millions rely on it for farming, fishing, tourism, and it makes it vital for economic stability and, again, sovereignty. Natural protection, as Mahdiah was mentioning before. Ecosystems like forests and wetlands act as buffers against natural disasters, so they protect from floods, from storms, and more. Also, interconnected life. So every species, as you all, I'm sure, know, plays a role in our ecosystem. So losing just one can disrupt the food system, food webs, and harm other species, including humans. And then, really important for future generations, preserving biodiversity ensures a livable and inspiring planet for our children, which is so important.
And I think with all that being said, reclaiming our own traditions also to some extent prevents cultural appropriation, which I think is also at the heart of Hikma Rituals' approach and ethos. Is we've seen in the GCC and MENA region, at least we've noticed it in the past couple of years, there's been a rising interest in wellness, which is amazing. But it has sometimes led to the inappropriate adoption of indigenous practices, such as sage smudging or burning Palo Santo, which do hold sacred meaning for indigenous peoples of North and South America. So, just something to keep in mind, that when appropriating rituals, symbols, or traditions without fully understanding and acknowledging their significance can be and are disrespectful to the communities that created it. And overall, it does amplify historical injustices. So this is obviously particularly harmful to indigenous peoples whose sacred traditions were often suppressed and whose cultural heritage continues until today to face exploitation. So here what we're really talking about is commodification of sacred plants, which has led as well to over-harvesting, threatening the sustainability of these resources.
Yeah, and also not fairly also compensating the growers. Like we need to be mindful, because the wellness industry is a beast now. Like many other industries, it's not just because it's wellness and it's rooted in nature a lot of the time. I think we have to be really discerning and be aware of where your plants are sourced from. The sacred rituals behind them, the traditions behind them, not just, it's like what we were talking about before, the supermarket thing, you're buying, there needs to be that connection, and it goes the same in the wellness industry, and we see it so much, with Palo Santo, it needs to be sourced ethically, and it's been harvested in a specific way, and really kind of respected for the sacredness around the plant. But also we have so many plants around us. It doesn't need to go all the way to South America. We really have hundreds of plants that are medicinal, that are sacred, that are spiritual. We're going to go through a few of them in a minute.
And we have growers here as well. We have
Yeah.
farmers that grow these plants here in the UAE, in the region, and we've been, lucky enough, and we've had the privilege to create really beautiful relationships with some of them. And
Yeah, there's you can a lot grows in the UAE. It has one of the longest growing seasons in the world. Yes, some of the plants are not, endemic or native to here, but they still grow, and the conditions allow them to grow. So there's so many plants, but we chose 4 today that we just want to go through. We don't have that much time, and the 4 plants that we've chosen are yarrow, sumac, rose, and frankincense. And we're going to just go over them each and let you have a smell and just kind of see what they're like. And maybe if we have a bit of time, do a little creative exercise at the end.
yeah, so we can start with frankincense. Frankincense is called luban in Arabic. So it's a resin, and it's been burned in temples, mosques, as well as in homes for millennia. It's believed to purify spaces, to invite divine presence, and even until today, the smoky scent of frankincense evokes the sense, a sense of the sacred, and it's said that the smoke carries our prayers to the heavens.
Yeah, I love that. So basically, the medicinal qualities of frankincense is it's anti-inflammatory. It's an immune modulator. It contains boswellic acids, which reduce inflammation. So we usually use it topically as an oil or an infused oil. And we use it for arthritis. We use it on the chest for asthma, even for inflammatory bowel disease. It supports respiratory health. It promotes wound healing. Its aromatic qualities aid in mental clarity, stress relief, and, as Mahdiah mentioned, spiritual practice. It calms anxiety and it enhances mindfulness. So, we want to give you a little practical way to use it. It's either to burn the resin, as probably a lot of you are familiar with, but also frankincense oil and tincture. Tincture can be taken internally for any kind of rheumatoid issues, and then also the oil can be used topically for inflammation. So that's how we use it in herbal medicine.
You can also chew on it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You can chew on it, and it's great for oral health.
Yeah, I know that from the mouthwash, but not to chew it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next one is rose. So I'm going to pass around our jar of rose. This is we call it heart medicine in herbalism because it's just so uplifting.
It's really a plant of paradoxes.
You can just have a smell and see how it makes you feel.
Yeah, it's really a plant of paradoxes because it's soft, yet it's strong, it's delicate, but it's so resilient as a plant. And across the region here, it's been a symbol for love, for beauty, for divine connection. In Sufi traditions, the rose is a metaphor for the soul's journey, with its thorns representing challenges and its bloom symbolizing divine connection.
So rose is not just the petals. We use the petals in a tea. I usually add it to heart-warming teas, or if someone's going through grief or loss, it's like I said, a heart medicine. It's uplifting. So the petals are used for that. It's also very astringent, which means it tones and tightens tissues. And then also the rose hip is really high in antioxidants, and that's the berry, so it's from the plant. And it's really high in antioxidants, vitamin C, so it's great for also inflammation, hormonal imbalances. It's good for a hot state, so cooling the liver. So when someone has a heated liver, we give them rose to cool them down. And then also on the skin, again, tightens tissues. It's astringent, so it's a really good skin. The rose water is quite commonly used here to put on the skin to tighten it.
And I think you have a very special relationship with the rose, right?
I forgot about that. Rose is the reason I became, not the reason, but it brought me into this path. So quite a few years ago, I basically was feeling quite kind of a bit of a loss of identity, not sure what I was doing, and I really, really was longing for a connection to something, and I didn't know what it was. I mean, now I do. And I saw a herbalist, and he said, I want you to do a meditation every morning with rose, and I want you to say this line every day, and I want you to make a rose tea with petals and inhale the scent of the rose and sit down and say, and I found it really out there, but I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. It was I call on my higher self and guardian angels to show me how to connect more deeply with Mother Earth. And I said that every day for a long time, and I was like, God, nothing's happening. But then all of a sudden, it wasn't all of a sudden. It was just a series of events that just brought me here. My degree became available online. I looked at all my old books and I saw that they were all about plants and gardening, but it really opened up the path to here. So I think if you choose one plant, and this is just to go on to say, if you choose a plant and do something like that with it, whether it's grow it or have the tea of it and say something over and over again and create a ritual, it can really, again, like create clarity and a path for you or whatever you're seeking in that moment in your life. So that's my story with Rose.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, my dear.
The third plant we wanted to highlight is sumac. So sumac, again, probably many of you know and are familiar with and maybe incorporate into your cooking as well. It grows in some of the toughest conditions and it thrives where other plants cannot. It has vibrant red clusters that symbolize vitality and survival. In Palestinian folklore, sumac is called the garden of the home, which I find so beautiful. And families would traditionally plant sumac plants or trees near their homes to protect them from harm. It was believed that it absorbs bad energy and brought prosperity. And it also has a very very deep red color that is said to hold protection against fire.
And you'll see it going around now. It's so cool. Like, I didn't know this until I started studying herbs, but that they were berries, because I always knew samar as like a powder that you sprinkle on your kebab, to be honest. And then I saw these berries, and I was like, it's amazing, and that's how we use them now. But samar is this also symbolizes love, which I love. It's used in food, as you all, a lot of you know, and medicine. It's full, as you can see from the color. Usually anything that's dark red or deep or berry-like is full of antioxidants. So it's really great for viruses, it's antimicrobial, it's useful for infections, again for wound healing, it supports cardiovascular health, it's a blood sugar regulator, it's also great for the urinary system, for kidney problems. Like, it's really, it's such an amazing all-round healing plant. We apply it in many different ways. We make it either by decoction, which is boiling it for a long time, or a tea with the powder, but there's also sumac lemonade, which is more in North Africa, right?
I'm not sure, because I grew up in Canada and we had sumac trees, and my sisters and I during the summer would make lemonade from.
Really, I read that it was North African somewhere. Yeah, so that supports digestion also and immunity. So we're passing it around now, but basically that's how you can use it in those different ways. So, but culinary as well.
And the fourth and last plant that we wanted to highlight today is yarrow, which is a plant that's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years as a healer. So it's really a plant that's deemed a healer in so many different ways. It's known as the wound warrior, actually, and it's famed for its ability to stop bleeding and protect against infection.
So yarrow, I love yarrow. I use it a lot. Yarrow is called Achillea millefolium, which is named after Achilles. So in Greek mythology, Achilles was said to use yarrow in the battlefield to treat his wounded soldiers. So that's where the Latin name came from. So it has a long history in many cultures for wound healing. Also, the story goes even deeper for me, again, is when I was researching plants of the north of Iraq, specifically Kurdistan, which is where my father's from, I found out about the Shanidar cave. Has anyone heard of this cave in the Zagros Mountains in Iraq? It is a 60,000-year-old Neanderthal burial site that was found. And in it, it's called the flower burial. And in it, there was a man buried with, I think, 6 to 8 different there was flower seeds found. So imagine 60,000 years ago, yarrow seeds were found in this burial. And I just got goosebumps when I heard that, because I was like, this is a plant I work with all the time. And there you can see, we don't know exactly, but it was obviously used in ritual because it was buried with him. So 60,000 years old, and it's in the Shanidar cave, and I'm hoping to go visit that soon.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. But it's used for wounds. It's also another thing in Kurdish folklore, it's called the blood of the mountain. So the legend goes that another legend about warrior who was gravely wounded prayed to the mountain spirits for help, and yarrow sprang from the ground where his blood fell, healing his wounds and marking the land as sacred ever since. So it heals wounds, it helps to stop bleeding, it speeds up tissue repair, it fights infection, and the way we use it topically is we call it a poultice. So you use the herb with a little bit moistened, and then you put it on a wound, and what it will do is it will help to stop the bleeding. Obviously, we wouldn't put it in a deep wound. That would be dangerous, but it would be more for like cuts. It acts, we call it a mild diaphoretic, so it induces mild sweating. So as soon as my kids have a fever, I give them yarrow, and it basically makes them sweat and cool the fever down. So my main mix straight away, antiviral, as soon as I'm feeling a little bit sick, is yarrow, elder, echinacea. I'll throw in whatever plants I feel I'm needing in that moment, but it's that tea every hour. I'll have a cup every hour, and I'll just, wrap myself up, and then it will induce sweating. Peppermint as well. And it's really good. It's a good antiviral. It's also good for menstrual health, easing cramps and regulating your menstrual cycle. It's a digestive bitter, so it aids in the breakdown of foods and releasing digestive juices to help digest and absorb nutrients. Yeah, that's yarrow.
So I think we were able to share with you how there's so many different aspects to plants and to the work that we do through Hikma rituals. And I think it's safe to say that when we engage with plants, we're not just using them, we're really entering into a relationship. And that relationship is, what's the word in English that I can never pronounce?
Reciprocal.
Yes, there you go.
So, a reciprocal relationship with the plants. And when we figure out how much they care for us, that in turn naturally makes us want to care for them, even if that's on an ego level, but still hopefully it goes deeper than that. But it makes you want to live in reciprocity with the plants and the land, and I think that's the most beautiful part of it. It's such a massive topic. We've tried to go over as much as possible, but again, it's really hard to put it all in 40 minutes. So I hope that you've taken away some.
So we had a little workshop planned, but I don't know if we're going to have time. So
do we?
No.
What time is it?
It's 40.
Okay, well, let's open up to Q&A.
Yeah,
and then what we were going to do, so maybe you can do it at home, is and you can come and have a smell when we're done. We've got the essential oils of each plant in the jar. And what you do is you sit, and it's similar to my rose story, but you can make it as a creative exercise. We actually printed notebooks out for you guys, but sit down, take a few smells, close your eyes, and see what comes up, and let it come out through writing or sketching. And really sit with the scent of the plant and see how it changes through this little exercise you do. Treat it like a little meditation. It's a really nice practice. So that's one thing. And then we wanted to open up to questions if anyone has any.
Or if anyone wants to share
any stories,
a story
about plants.
Or
Yes.
Story. I don't have a story because, like I said, I grew up without any relationship to plants. I was here, and my mom used to buy things from the supermarket, so complete disconnection. And now I'm more curious because I'm watching the news. I'm Palestinian originally. I'm seeing how they are completely eradicating our olive trees that are thousands of years old, replacing them with European pine trees, and really restructuring the soil and restructuring the landscape and the structure of the place. So I do want to form a relationship. But as I was listening to you, I was both inspired as well as frustrated because I felt like there were so many barriers to adoption and entry. One, that, there's so much to learn. There's such a big skill set that's missing because we've gotten used to acquiring everything so quickly. Even in terms of cooking, I mean, not many people cook today. Yeah. So there's so much that in terms of reclamation and in terms of decolonial practice that requires a very different lifestyle altogether. And on that note, I even have a psychological barrier, which is I've adapted so much to medicine in a pharmaceutical sense that I wonder if my body is even responds to medicinal plants and natural plants at all. So there is how we've adapted to modern life, as well as the lifestyles that we're living, and how do we go from where we're at now to that reclamation. How do we, there's so much to decolonize, so much to reclaim, so much to undo.
Yeah. And
it's just a reflection more than a question.
That's a beautiful
thank you
reflection.
So much for sharing.
And it's really important to highlight that. And I think it can be really overwhelming. I think I'll answer your question in two, or I'll just start with the pharmaceutical thing. We're not against pharmaceuticals, we're against the pharmaceutical industry. So I think that we have to always say as herbalists that it is really important that pharmaceuticals do have their place. And as I said, a lot of them are derived from plants anyway. They're just, standardized into pill form or however they're made. But we're not against them. They have their place. They're really important. They're life-saving. When it comes to herbs and whether your body can heal with herbs, 100% it can. It's slower, it's different. We treat the root cause of the problem. We don't just plaster over the symptoms, which a lot of medicines do. So it depends on what you're treating. It depends on what imbalances you have in your body. And then we're very honest about the way we can treat them. But definitely your body will respond because I don't know how to explain it fully, but it's the way that we're meant to. It's already in you. Like, this is thousands of years of the way of the way our body's healed, and also without medicine. So the reason we use medicine a lot is because we live in systems that need us to be always productive and go, and we live in these systems that demand so much of us. We don't get time to rest and to convalesce, as they used to say, or to recover. And that's the big problem. It's not us and the way we are or the way our bodies are going to take it. It's the systems that we live in that don't allow us to heal in the way that we're meant to be healing. And that's the big problem. And that shouldn't be put on us. That should be put on the systems that we live in, which are wrong. How do we address that? That's too much. I get overwhelmed by it and I get upset by it, and it's really hard for me to process. So without going and living off grid in like the middle of nowhere, I don't know, but can we create with the relationships with the plants where we start to learn about them more? Yes, without being overwhelmed. And that could be you take what interests you most and go with that, whether that's growing from one seed, learning what the seed looks like up to when the plant flowers, or cooking with one ingredient, or taking one tea and just doing that for 3 months, really on that side.
Yeah, and I think fostering a relationship with one plant as a starting point too, and really getting to know that plant, and then you get to know that plant beyond simply its properties, and and then you get to know its essence really. And it's actually fascinating how you really do feel like you have a relationship with that plant.
Yeah.
And just on your point on everything that's going on in Palestine, I think it's so crucial how the sovereignty of our people is so linked to the sovereignty of our lands, and that means the sovereignty of our plants as well, and so making sure that we retain access to plants that are native to our regions, and that we keep those traditions alive, and that we preserve those seeds, like with the example of the seed bank in Iraq that Shereen mentioned, is so crucial and is actually so linked to the sovereignty of our people as well.
Yeah, I'd like to just promote one woman, Vivian Sansour. She
We
has a
love her.
Palestinian heirloom library,
love her.
so you guys should all look her up and keep that perpetuating.
Yeah, she saves
Thank you for that.
she saves a lot of the heirloom seeds. She's amazing. And also Leila Ferrali, who wrote the book Land in Our Bones. That's all about like the colonization of our lands and our region. And we actually contribute to the herbal guide for the medical workers in Gaza, and now it's being expanded to Lebanon. So that is an extensive body of work. It's insane. It's like hundreds of pages that's being translated into Arabic, and it's every single ailment, illness, acute, chronic, emergency care, wound care, burn care, and the plants that grow only in Gaza that can treat those things. So we've been contributing to that with a bunch of amazing women and herbalists as well.
From around the world.
From around the world. So like if you ever want to know, you can reach out to us, but there are so many different ways, whether that's research, learning, cooking, growing, anything. But like, I think find your interest and do it. And also, know that every step, just one more point, every step you're taking, whether that's the tiniest thing, is you regaining your own sovereignty and you're not giving it out anymore. And that's like, again, an act of resistance, and it can be really small. It doesn't have to be big. And remembering that our body has an innate ability to heal, and not letting anyone else make us believe that we need all these outside things to heal our body. And even in wellness, our body already knows what it's doing so much of the time if you just leave it alone. That's
or
just
support it in the right way.
Yeah. Okay. I can go off about these subjects for 10 hours, but I think someone's going to stop me. Is there anything else before we have to get off? We're being kicked off soon. No. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Hi.
I can't see. Hi.
No worries.
Hi.
I had a question in regards to the olfactory interventions and therapeutic practices. Do you guys see that being practiced a lot over here in terms of medicinal herbs and all that in terms of like, because it can help memory and even like healing like stress and anxiety. Do you guys see that being practiced here?
I don't see it being practiced here. Do you?
Not that I'm aware of, but there's so much things going on, to be honest, in the city and in the country, and it's moving so fast that we may just, maybe we didn't come across it.
No, I know of its use, obviously, with essential oils, which we
Yeah.
try to actually not use as much because essential oils are really strong and they're actually like herbal antibiotics, and they've been overused a lot. They're not good. They actually damage your natural microbiome of your skin as well. There's so much research around that which you can look into. But olfactory therapy as a way to uplift, or so it was used even after COVID to get people's sense of smell back with specific essential oils. But it's not in my practice. Is it? Do you know more about it? I would love to know.
I've only heard about olfactory being used over here for dementia.
Oh,
and healing
amazing!
that,
That's amazing.
Because
that
I mean,
makes sense.
especially like with smell and sound,
Yeah.
and familiar faces. They were saying that at post-COVID, the interventions weren't as effective because of the effects of of COVID on the smell and taste. But I was wondering if after that, if they still continued maybe to using it, because usually in scientific studies, if something isn't necessarily working long term, they try to find alternatives.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard about it being used yet with medicinal plants. Like I've just heard about it being used with familiar smells in general.
Okay.
So just
Wow.
an interesting question.
I love that. I'm gonna go now.
For sure.
I'm gonna go in a rabbit hole tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
So,
everyone.
yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks so much. Now we can go dance. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you have an amazing time at Seoul. Enjoy the roots tonight, whoever's going, at 11 past our bedtime. Thank you.